Hi guys, my name is Niyi. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is just an opportunity. These films we're going to be making is an opportunity for us to share real life experiences with real people. We're not claiming to be the gatekeepers for blackness. It's just an opportunity for us to talk about experiences on racism here in the UK and abroad. Today I've got an amazing guest joining me. His name is Eri-ife Williams. So let's talk racism. So Eri-ife, first of all, actually, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you again.
Fantastic. No, lovely. I mean, I'm great. Thanks for asking. So today what I kind of want to focus on is the kind of 4 dimensions of racism. So institutional racism, structural, interpersonal, internalized racism, and then just touch up on kind of like microaggressions. So for your own kind of experience, can you just talk me through like your experience in racism here in the UK, first of all?
I'd say my experience with racism in the UK as a whole would be a massive mixture between overt racism, covert racism, microaggressions, violence, name calling, basically all the above. Just a big pick of mix of racism, to be honest.
Well, there you go. I mean, so kind of in terms of your experiences, what kind of stuff have you experienced?
I guess obviously starting in school, when I'd say one of the earliest memories I had of racism was when I was in year 3. And
That's young.
Very young. And my teacher sat all the black kids on one table, in the corner actually. And there was 5 of us on that table, even though every single other table actually only fit 4 people. That was my first experience of racism, and I didn't really know it was racist at first until I was speaking to my mum, obviously joining the school, who you're sitting with, and she started picking up. She was like, "Oh, do you sit on the table with all black people?" I was like, "Oh yeah," like, because I was just like, "Yeah, like, we all sit together." Yeah. And then she had a big problem with that.
Yeah, that is a big problem.
Yeah, she had a very big problem with that. Spoke to school about it, and then later on, the same teacher had a project. We had to do this sheet with our nutrition in terms of like what we eat every single day, and obviously I wrote down a load of Nigerian food. That's what I was eating at home, and she had like put like red marks all over it, like don't know what this is, what is this, like this. And that was when I started realizing that people were going to treat you differently because they, like because of the color of your skin or because of your heritage or where you're from. And all these things my mum was teaching me at this time, like, don't ever let someone make you feel this because of this. Don't let anyone, for example, put you in a corner, like whether it's, physically or, mentally put you in a corner because of the color of your skin, all these things. So I started learning that from a very, very young age, which made me quite I wouldn't say angsty young man, but I'd say I was always, because I knew these things, because I always knew people would do these things. I started spotting them quite early and started realizing the things people would say or things people would comment about my hair and things that I would be like, this isn't right. So yeah, I'd say that started from quite early.
But don't you think it's so interesting that, as that's your own experience, that a white person probably hasn't had to have their parents tell them certain ways to act? Or like I've had my dad, like I went through a period where my dad literally only put me in suits because it was like, I'm not taking any chances here, like you don't wear hoodies, you don't wear trackies, nothing like that. Something I want to kind of touch up on is something you mentioned in terms of microaggressions. So for the people who actually don't know what microaggressions are, so I'll just give you kind of a dictionary explanation of what it is. So it's a statement, action or incident regarded as an instance of indirect or subtle or unintentional discrimination against members of marginalized groups such as a racial or ethnic minority. So have you experienced any kind of microaggressions in your lifetime? I mean, I know for myself that I have. For example, I think in the past, like, I know I've come from a privileged background myself, so I know that I don't kind of fit some of the molds that people kind of create, the narratives which they create in their head. And I remember, like, when I used to work in TV, somebody asking, "Oh, let's do a show together. It would be really good." And then he was like, "You could be like the gangster, like talking like white blood." And I was like, I do not actually speak like that. And it made me feel really uncomfortable. But I was just like, yeah, like trying to think, oh, can I fit that character? But that's me trying to fit a narrative that somebody's created in their head to make them feel comfortable. So have you kind of experienced any kind of...
All my life. A recent one at work. we were on a group of table and people were talking about Christmas.
Okay.
And they were saying, as a joke, they're saying, our marketing team should all go for a Christmas caroling. Oh, you can sing, I bet you'll be good at singing. Oh, Eri-ife, you can rap.
Oh, no way.
And then it's just the whole thing of, obviously I brushed it off. Also, the way I am as a person as well, I don't like people knowing they've got to me.
Yeah.
And I brushed it off and I kind of forgot about it. And then later on, I remember mentioning it to my wife and we spoke about it and she was like, that's disgusting. Like the fact that someone would go out of their way to speak, like they've literally gone around the whole table and said, you can sing, you can sing, you can sing, which in turn is weird anyway. You should just say, we all can sing. So like when she spoke to me about it, I was like, this person already had it in their mind before they even started this comment. They already they definitely had it in their mind of you can sing, you can sing, you can sing. Oh, you can rap. And it was the kind of thing I was just like, oh yeah, cool, whatever, brushed it off, didn't even really engage with the conversation. Yeah. But it's these things that people get away with.
Yeah, but how does that kind of make you feel though after, like what?
Oh, it always makes me feel like I don't belong.
But in the moment though, you just try and brush it off, and then after it just feels a bit like.
I feel like it's not even necessarily of a feeling of I brushed it off and then afterwards it's made me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That's more with overt. Okay. That's more when people are really outright being racist to me. That's when I think about it. With that situation, I kind of brushed it off, but I think with these situations, it's the accumulation of them, it's the build-up that then makes me feel a certain way. So for example, when I go into an office and I think, oh my God, okay, I can't wear this, or I need to dress like this so people don't think of me as this. Or, okay, I shouldn't speak like this, or I shouldn't say this, or maybe I shouldn't be too loud, or I need to... I think it's a long-term build-up of me acting a certain way because of things that I've heard in the past.
So like then that falls into over-politeness, right?
Exactly. That's the main one. That's from kids. You know, you're going to a sleepover. Your mum's like, oh, make sure if you're going to say thank you, like make sure you do it separately to everyone else. Because if you say thank you in a group of other people, they're going to forget it, or you may be seen as rude, or you may be seen as ungrateful. Make sure they know you're grateful. Make sure, for example, if a friend's parent drops me off, I have to make sure I go up to them privately and be like, thank you so much for dropping me. I really, really appreciate it. Rather than, thanks, see you later. My friends will jump out the car, cool. All
That's
that sort of
so
stuff.
interesting you say that, because growing up too, my dad would say that, but in my head I just thought, okay, like just being super polite. And so kind of growing up, I've had that imprinted in my kind of head to always just go off separately and make sure that I make a point of being kind of like super polite.
And I think it's a good trait to have in general. But the fact that you have to do it, or you're going to be seen as rude in relation to other people, the fact that it's almost like it's just needed so you don't fit a certain stereotype. That's where the problem comes in for me.
No, I mean, I totally understand that, and I kind of want to touch up on a point which you made about the overt and covert racism, and that falls into the whole, the UK is not as racist as America argument, right? And my own understanding and kind of what I see is that the UK is more kind of covert about the way they're racist to people. So it manifests itself in kind of microaggressions, which then kind of multiply into kind of internalized racism, interpersonal racism, and things like that. So just from your own, like, what would you say when people say, oh, like the UK is just not as bad as America? What would you say to that?
I think it's detrimental.
Oh, really?
I think that statement itself is detrimental because it takes away from all experiences any black person or any person of colour has gone through with racism in this country. It takes away from the fact that, you know, people go away hating their features because they've been bullied for them. It takes away from the fact that people aren't comfortable in certain spaces. It takes away from the fact that people go to work and they're made to feel a certain way. I think it just takes away. I think I made a point to my friend the other day. I said it's like being in a relationship, right? And your partner's emotionally abusing you, verbally abusing you, making you feel like crap. You're nothing. You feel absolutely just drained. You're nothing. They've literally sucked the life out of you by really bullying you in a relationship. But the person making you feel like that says, well, at least you're not being at least I'm not hitting you. It could be worse. I could be punching you in the face.
But it's still the same form. It's just different.
And then also to be comparing pain. I don't think that's the case. I don't think I don't think that's progressive at all. I think people should just understand what's going on here, and for that we need to actually address it, and we need to solve the problem that we're having in this country.
So, I mean, that's a really good point. So how do we go about kind of solving that issue? I know it's detrimental for people to say those things, but for somebody watching who's like a white person who maybe hasn't been exposed to kind of multicultured people, or multicultures, black people specifically, what can they do to actually do better? Like, how can they? And I know we keep talking about educated, but then there's the argument that black people are tired of educating you, right?
I don't think it's up to black people to educate. I think we do because we want change, and we do because like a lot of people are gonna. If you're a white person looking to be educated on racism for black people, you're gonna go to a black person, and you're also not gonna be like no, because that's not gonna help the problem.
Yeah.
But I think it's for the person themselves to go away and educate themselves.
Okay.
Like there's certain people that have come to me and asked me. I'm fine with that, but I also love when someone's come to me and said, oh, I'd love to speak to you about your experiences. I've read this, that, and the other, or I just watched 13, It
so
goes
they come in with some like back knowledge.
Yeah,
as well,
it goes to show that they're on their own accord. They've gone away and they've actually wanted to learn something.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, and that's something I'm definitely going to take away because.
And I also I also think that's for black people as well.
Yeah. So in what way?
I think we also need to educate ourselves on our history.
Yeah.
And we also need to educate ourselves on the history of racism in this country, because I feel like if we don't know our history, we can't progress. And a lot of us don't know it because we haven't been given the chance to know it.
Well, yeah, because that's when it falls into where the education system here has been totally whitewashed. And I was having a conversation with a group of people the other day, like everybody else is white, and people, they give you their side of the argument, right? And this is why it's important for you to be very well versed and educated, because you can actually come back with stats and facts, and then when you actually show them the stats and facts, because they don't lie, then they start to actually think about it kind of like objectively, and they can actually understand it. Whereas before they just think, oh, like that's what you think.
That's just it. And I think with racism, it's a very touchy subject, because both for the people that have experienced racism and also for the people trying to understand it, because they don't want to be seen as racist, and they don't want you to think they're racist, and they don't want to feel racist. So really and truly, for people to actually understand it and actually to progress, then we need to be educated. That's what I mean by both sides. We need to be speaking obviously about experiences and how we feel, but also about facts and figures, and because that's when a lot of people who don't care about your experiences or don't care about my experiences or aren't going to hear the things that have happened to me, and they'll be like, okay, cool. Some people don't care, but when there's actually facts and figures there, like you can't ignore facts, and if you want to, then obviously you're part of the problem. You're ignorant, but that's all. There's nothing else you can do there.
No, I mean that's absolutely right, and I think from today what we kind of take away, and I think these are extremely important points, is one, education, not just for white people, for black people as well. And I guess that maybe isn't like just having this conversation now has made me realize that a lot of my black friends probably actually aren't extremely versed in terms of like their knowledge of racism as a whole. So because they feel like, okay, well, I've had my experiences, I can speak from my own experiences, which I think is like, that's your own truth, and that's your own story, and that's a perfect example for you to kind of explain how you feel, which I totally understand, which is great. But also being able to educate yourself, then you can educate others better, and being able to explain. I know it's such a difficult conversation, right? But I'm not expecting everybody to be an expert on it, but the more you know, the easier it's going to be for you to educate other people.
That's just it. It's just it's all things, right? Like if you really care about something, you're going to read up on it. I'm into fashion. I'm well versed in it. I read up on it. I research things. I find things out. I look at the history. I look at the present. I look at trends. Like, because you're interested in something, and if you really want to make a change about something, I'm not saying everyone needs to be the next Martin Luther King or Malcolm X and be an activist, but we know that to make a change, we're gonna need more than just sharing our experiences, because if that was so, it would have been done by now.
Yeah, that's true.
We know we need extra things. Like I was speaking to my friend the other day, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know it's half a," because I was telling him, I got stopped by the police because I was on the bike the other day. I was on a Santander bike, and I got stopped by the police, and I was telling him about it.
So recently, in the last couple of days,
I got stopped 4 times in a month during lockdown.
What?
During lockdown. Like I got stopped for, like, ask my wife, she was there, like, every time I've come home from all these experiences. There was a time I even videoed, like, she's seen everything. So it's like, there's a lot of, like, some of these were stop and search and detain. Some of these were just police stopping me and asking me where I'm going. But 4 times.
That's a lot.
Just for riding my bike. It is a lot.
Which is the thing that we were actually allowed to do.
We're allowed to do that. So I was speaking to my friend about it, and he was like, oh yeah, I understand. Like, oh, do you think black people were stopped a bit more than white? And I was like, it's a fact.
Yeah.
I said, we're 8 times more likely to be stopped and searched. In a stop and search, we're 8 times more likely. In a routine section 60, for example, we're 43 times more likely. We're 6 times more likely to be handcuffed. Like, these are facts, these are figures, like, these are. And when he heard this, he was mind blown. This is someone that speaks to me on a daily. This is someone that knows my experiences. But until he heard the facts, the figures, because sometimes, especially if you explain your experiences to people, they're just gonna think, okay, maybe it's just you, or maybe you just had this bad, or maybe it was just some bad white people and you were unlucky. Maybe that's just, but it's not about, that's the thing, racism isn't about just random acts of racism. It's not random acts of hatred. It's not someone shouting and calling you the N-word or someone beating you up on the street. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the ignorance to it, actually. Yeah. Is the fact that people don't realize, is the fact that your friend who can love you, care for you, love black people, love black culture, all this stuff, actually still be part of the problem with racism in this country just because they're actually ignorant to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting that you say that, because in this conversation I was having with a group of people the other day as well, it was kind of like, oh, but I think there's an issue with, like, the lack of a father figure. And I was like, well, yeah, there might be an issue with the lack of father figures, but this is why there is an issue.
With the
One, because black men are way more likely to get stopped by the police. They're way more likely to get longer jail sentences for similar offences. So that's where the issue comes from. It's not that, like, the fathers are just, like, disappeared.
They're just randomly just
It's because
running off.
This is why they're in jail, this. And then you lay it out to them, like, the sequences, and then they're like, oh, okay,
get it.
I see. But it shouldn't always have to fall to black people to explain the sequence.
It's
like,
exhausting. Yeah. It's exhausting. I tell you, I had to take a break. I had to take a break off social media after all of this, because first of all, reliving your experiences, especially with me, I'm the kind of person I suppress loads. It's actually not healthy. It's actually not healthy how much I suppress. But I suppress a lot of stuff because it's also like, what am I supposed to do? Just every day think like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened to me. Or, I remember we were on. I think it was when we were on live, and I was just speaking as I do. I was rambling on, and then I was speaking about the time when I was leaving my friend's house and his dad searched my bag for his phone and his charger, and I hadn't even thought about this since it happened. This happened when I was in year 9. I hadn't even thought about these things. So there's just like, there's a lot of suppression like there, and I feel like bringing up these experiences is tiring in one, but then also like arguing with people, explaining to people, educating people. It is a lot. I had to take a break from everything, and the funny thing is, I was speaking to Cash about it. I was like, I took a break from social media because all this was tiring. I literally went out to clear my head on the bike and I got stopped by the police.
Oh, the irony, right? That's actually crazy. But I mean, I think it's really important you say reliving your kind of memories, and for years and years and years, black people, from my own experience, like I've always suppressed these emotions. My friends who I've known for kind of like 12, 15 years, I'm only really having these conversations with them now, and they're kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And I guess it's opened their eyes to our experience, and it's given them an opportunity to actually go out and learn more about it. So I think that's a positive from reliving the memories.
It is. And I think this time has given people a rare opportunity to share their experiences without sounding like, it sounds funny, but sounding like they're whining.
Yeah.
Because how else sometimes you're supposed to bring these things up? I remember there was a time Cash and I went out with a load of my friends. It was my friend's birthday. We were in Manchester at the time, and her and a couple of her friends came, my friend's girlfriends, blah, blah, blah. There was like a big group, I'd say maybe like 15 of us. I'd say out of that, there was probably like 9 guys, all black. And when we're getting into the queue, obviously doing the usual,
Yeah.
we're splitting up. Like,
Oh my God!
the fact that I can
so
even say that's the usual, and everyone
literally
knows.
the usual.
Everyone
Like the amount of
knows.
times they're like, okay, you go, we'll come 10 minutes after
Exactly,
you, so it doesn't
exactly.
look like we're a group of black guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of her friends, Niyi, she was baffled. She was like, what are you guys doing? We were like, we can't get in the club. She goes, yeah, but there's loads of groups of guys. I was like, yeah, but they're not black. Like, they're not.
Yeah,
They're not
I mean,
black.
it's laughable now, but
yeah.
it's a very serious thing.
And then like, oh no, but she's like, oh no, but you guys all like, they're gonna let you. Like, look, honestly, like,
trust me,
they're not gonna. We did that. Anyways, a couple of people were in the club anyway. A couple of us are coming afterwards. We split up. They've now been like, oh, all your IDs say you're from around London. We're like, yeah. He goes, this guy's ID says he's from London as well. The guys that came was like, yeah. Do you guys know each other? First of all, that's not a problem anyway.
Yeah.
But we're like, nah, what, him? What? Because we're black? No, I don't know. No, I don't know this guy. Anyway, long story short, they don't let us in the club. She was outraged by that, like outraged, to the point where like even after this all started, she's even now started a Black Lives Matter group for like basically like an anti-racist group for white people who want to tackle this and who want to learn more, who want to educate themselves, who want to make a change, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
But from that day, she messaged us when this whole thing started. She was like, I've never seen anything like that. And people don't. So I feel like it's now given us the rare opportunity to, for example, what she experienced that day, to really open their eyes to the experiences of a black person.
Yeah.
But if she wasn't there, what am I going to say? I'm going to sit down with her and be like, oh yeah, you know, the other week they didn't let us into the club. It's going to either go over her head, or she's going to sound like we're whining, or she's going to be like, oh, that was sad. But until she was there, because she couldn't get into the club either.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? It's it's like they really understood what it's like.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually really important that you say that too, because sometimes it does take for you to experience it for it to actually hit home. And again, like, we've experienced it, so we know, and it's already hit home. Like it's been built, its castle, it's there, so we know that. So yeah, I mean, I think going forward, yeah, we definitely need to make sure that people are educated, black and white people, and just to understand that it's not good enough to say, oh, I'm not racist. You actually have to be anti-racist.
That's just it. I think it starts at school. Obviously, everyone's now saying self-educate. There's books, there's documentaries, there's all these things. But like, this stuff should really start at school.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's important. Like, well, interesting you say that. I spoke with headmaster of my former school, and we spoke about teaching black history in school, and he was like, yeah, we've been teaching black history actually for a couple of years now since he joined, but it's really difficult to teach black history because where do you teach it, because not everybody does history all the way through school. And I was like, fair enough, I didn't do history, I dropped history after third form, so not everybody does it all the way through. So at what point do you then start teaching it? Because what do you teach it from younger years? So you teach from like, I don't know, year 1 through to like year 6, 7, and try and carry it on as like, how do you go about educating in school?
I think as early as possible.
Yeah.
Not to the point where it's too early, it's going to go over their heads, but I think as early as you think it's going to resonate with children, I think as early as possible. We learn about so much stuff. We learn about so much history, so much irrelevant history, so much fake history.
So much fake history.
So why can't we actually learn? Exactly, because I feel like a lot of the problem people have is this false sense of entitlement and this false view that, you know, black people and people of colour are just here lurking, just trying to take their jobs.
Yeah.
They don't understand the actual contribution like people have made to some 30-year-old the other week didn't even know the Windrush were invited here.
Really?
Did he not know this? So I'm sitting there thinking, how did you not know? But then I'm thinking, also, unless he's actually kind of interested, or unless he's just been in certain circles, or, you know, just heard stuff, how would they know?
Yeah.
It's not like he skips, even if he went to every single lesson in history, he's not taught.
But to be honest, even with that, like with the Windrush situation, like I had to educate myself about that.
Exactly. Like I started educating myself on black history when I was 22. Like I started, I think I picked up the book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race.
Yeah.
And from then, obviously I started getting into it. I started researching about the people that I was reading about in the books and going on and on and on. But I'm 25 now, and I started learning that at 22.
Yeah.
Like, so much of people's, you know, like self-confidence, so much of people's self-worth, so much of people's personality comes from knowing their history.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not even taught that, and the fact that we have to self-teach that at such a, well, obviously mine was a late age, it could be earlier for other people, but
Yeah.
the fact that we have to take that on our own accord, and the fact that it's actually not taught to us and it's actually stripped away from us, I think is a huge problem. And I think that's the main. I think that's a very big chunk of why this racism in this country is so bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But Eri-ife, honestly, thank you so much. It's been exceptional.
No worries at all.
I really appreciate the time. Genuinely, thank you so much.
No problem.
We're definitely going to do this again on other
Definitely.
topics. But again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great. It's been an opportunity for me to learn, for Eri-ife to even learn himself.
Exactly.
And for you all to actually learn. So make sure you tune in again. We're going to be doing this again. Thank you.